Welcome back to our cozy forest adventures. Join Hazel, Brindle, Pip, and Finn as they embark on a brand new journey through the woods, discovering surprises, friendship, and tiny magical moments along the way. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming forest tales. Sweet dreams and happy listening. Stories from the woods. The sun rose soft and golden over the trees, spilling light through the branches and painting the forest floor in shifting patches of warmth. A crisp breeze rustled the tall grass, carrying with it the faint smell of dew and wildflowers. Hazel the bunny peeked out from her burrow and twitched her nose. Today was not just any day. Today was picnic day. For weeks, the animals had spoken of it. A great meadow gathering where everyone would bring a dish to share, and they would sit under the wide sky, eating and laughing until the stars came out. Hazel's paws tingled with excitement as she hopped back inside to fetch her basket. Inside, Pip the squirrel was already busy. He had slept at Hazel's burrow the night before to help with preparations. At the moment, he was fussing with a jar of strawberry jam, making sure the lid was tied tightly with a little strip of cloth. "Careful, Pip," Hazel said, smoothing her ears. "If you spill that, the ants will be the first to arrive at the picnic." Pip grinned. "No chance of that. This jam is too precious to waste. I picked the berries myself, red as rubies." A knock came at the door, deep and steady. Hazel opened it to find Brindle the badger standing tall, a woven basket slung over his shoulder. "Morning," he said in his low voice. "I've brought bread. Fresh, still warm." The scent drifted in at once, nutty, hearty, and comforting. Hazel's stomach gave a little rumble. Not long after, Finn the frog came bounding up the path, humming cheerfully. He carried a jug of cool spring water with slices of lemon floating inside. "For thirst," he declared proudly. "Better than plain pond water, I'd say." With their baskets ready, bread, jam, water, and Hazel's little bundle of cheeses wrapped in leaves, they set off toward the meadow. The path was alive with morning sounds. Birds calling from the treetops, cicadas buzzing in the grass, and the soft whoosh of the breeze through the willows. Hazel skipped ahead, heart fluttering with joy. She imagined the meadow already filled with friends, blankets spread out, plates piled high, and laughter rolling across the open air. A day of food, fun, and togetherness was just beginning. The friends followed the winding path through the forest. Sunlight danced between the leaves, landing on the ground like little golden coins. The air was fresh, with a hint of pine and wild mint. Hazel hopped lightly, while Pip scampered from tree to tree, his fluffy tail flicking behind him. Brindle walked slowly but steadily, his heavy basket of bread swinging at his side. Finn hopped along, sometimes too quickly, so he had to stop and wait for the others. "Come on," he called, his voice bubbling like water. "If we're late, all the honey cakes will be gone." Hazel laughed. "Don't worry, Finn. Clover the hedgehog is bringing honey cakes, and she always makes more than enough." The path opened into a sunny clearing where the meadow stretched wide and green. Butterflies fluttered above the flowers, and bees hummed busily. In the distance, Hazel could see blankets already spread on the grass. Bright baskets dotted the meadow like little treasures waiting to be opened. "Look," Pip squeaked. "They're already here." Sure enough, Owl perched on a log, arranging jars of pickled beets in a neat row. Clover bustled about, setting her honey cakes in a covered basket. A family of mice carried tiny pies, while a fox cub brought bundles of herbs tied with twine. Everyone had brought something special. Hazel's heart swelled. She loved the way food brought everyone together. It wasn't just the eating, it was the sharing. Each dish carried a little piece of the one who made it. "Let's find a good spot," Brindle said, his deep voice calm as ever. They laid their blanket near a cluster of daisies and began to unpack their baskets. Pip set down his jar of ruby-red jam with a proud pat. Brindle placed his warm loaves of bread in the center. Hazel unwrapped her cheeses, and Finn carefully set the jug of lemon water in the shade. Soon, animals from all over the forest came to join them. Laughter filled the meadow, mixing with the songs of larks in the sky. It was the beginning of a grand feast, one that would be remembered all through the year. The meadow filled quickly. Blankets overlapped as animals found spots beside one another, and soon the grass was nearly hidden under bright cloths and baskets. The air was alive with smells: Clover's honey cakes, Owl's pickled beets, roasted nuts from the mice, and the warm bread Brindle had carried. Hazel sat proudly with her friends. She cut small wedges of cheese and placed them neatly on a wooden board. "Here," she said, offering them around. "Try it with Pip's jam." Finn wasted no time. He smeared a thick spoonful of jam over the cheese and popped it into his mouth. His eyes grew wide. "Oh, sweet and sharp together. This is the best thing I've ever eaten." Pip puffed his chest. "Told you my jam was special." Soon the animals began trading bites with one another. A hedgehog offered slices of pear tart. The fox cub passed around sprigs of mint and thyme to freshen the bread. Even Owl, usually so serious, handed Hazel a beet slice with a gentle nod. Music drifted through the meadow as a cricket and a grasshopper began to play fiddles made of twigs and string. The younger animals ran in circles, chasing butterflies, while the older ones leaned back on blankets, enjoying the sun on their fur and feathers. Hazel felt a glow in her chest. The food, the laughter, the songs. It was everything she hoped the picnic would be. After the first round of food, the games began. "Berry toss," cried Pip, holding up a basket of ripe blueberries. The game was simple. Toss the berry into a friend's mouth from as far away as you could. Finn was surprisingly good, leaping to snatch them mid-air with his wide mouth. Brindle, however, was hopeless. Each berry bounced off his nose or rolled down his fur, but he only laughed, his deep voice booming through the meadow. Next came races. The mice scurried quickly across a marked line, their tiny paws kicking up dust. Pip challenged Hazel to a hop-and-dash race, which ended with both tumbling into a patch of clover, laughing so hard they couldn't stand. When the sun grew hot, everyone rested in the shade. Finn passed around the jug of lemon water, now cool with drops of dew on the outside. Clover brought her honey cakes at last, soft, golden, and dripping with sweetness. They melted in their mouths, and even Owl smiled after his second one. Hazel licked honey from her paw and sighed happily. It feels like summer is saying goodbye in the nicest way possible. As the afternoon wore on, the meadow quieted for a while. Some animals lay back in the grass, watching clouds drift lazily across the sky. Others shared stories. Brindle told of a time he found a patch of chestnuts so big he had to roll them home one by one. Pip spoke of climbing the tallest oak in the forest just to see if the stars looked closer from up there. Hazel listened, chin resting on her paws. The sun was warm, the grass soft, and the voices of her friends were like a blanket around her. When the stories ended, they shared more food. Owl cut slices of dark rye bread, thick and chewy. Pip spread his jam over it and passed slices down the row. Hazel paired her cheese with Clover's pear tart, the sweet fruit and creamy bite blending perfectly. It wasn't about how much they ate. It was about the way each taste felt like a gift, passed from paw to paw, shared without hesitation. The sun began to lower, painting the meadow in golden light. Shadows stretched long, and the fiddles started again. Animals linked paws and wings in a circle, dancing clumsily but joyfully in the grass. Finn hopped in the middle, spinning until he fell over, making everyone roar with laughter. Brindle clapped along, his heavy paws thudding like a drum. Pip's tail flicked in rhythm, and Hazel spun with Clover until they collapsed in a heap, giggling and breathless. After the dancing, it was time for the great sharing. Every animal brought their leftovers to the middle, and together they made one enormous picnic spread. There were piles of bread, bowls of herbs, jars of jam, honey cakes, pies, roasted nuts, and cheeses. Everyone was free to take what they liked, and the meadow smelled richer than any feast Hazel had ever known. They ate together again, but this time with no hurry. Slow bites, soft laughter, and stories told under the growing twilight. The food was only half of it. The other half was the warmth of being side by side. By the time the first stars blinked in the sky, the meadow had grown quieter. The little ones curled on blankets, half asleep, while the older animals packed away the empty baskets. Fireflies drifted above the grass, glowing like tiny lanterns. Hazel sat with her friends, finishing the last slice of apple pie someone had shared. She looked around at the meadow, the blankets, the jars, the crumbs scattered on the grass, and felt her heart swell. This was more than a picnic, she whispered. Brindle nodded. It was a memory. Pip yawned, stretching his paws. And one I'll be dreaming of all winter. Finn licked a last drop of honey from his paw and grinned. As long as we do it again next year, I'll be happy. The meadow was calm now, but it held the echo of laughter, music, and friendship. Hazel knew that the food would soon be gone, but the feeling of the day would stay tucked in their hearts like a jar of sweetness that never ran out. And with that thought, she leaned back, gazing at the star-sprinkled sky, and let the night wrap her in peace. The morning after the picnic dawned quiet, with soft gray clouds drifting lazily over the treetops. Hazel woke in her burrow, her ears still full of the laughter and music from the day before. She stretched, feeling the pleasant heaviness of good food and happy memories, and hopped into the main room where Pip was still fast asleep, curled into a ball, his tail wrapped over his nose. She smiled. Pip always ate too many honey cakes. Hazel decided not to wake him. Instead, she stepped outside and breathed in the cool air. The meadow was still faintly scented with yesterday's feast. Empty jars and scraps of cloth lay here and there, left behind by sleepy animals who had carried their baskets home too late in the evening to tidy up. Hazel made a mental note to gather her friends later to help clean. By mid-morning, the others began to stir. Finn appeared first, hopping down the path with a cheerful croak. "Good morning, Hazel. What a day that was. My belly is still full. I swear if I hop too quickly, I'll roll instead." Hazel laughed. "You did eat quite a lot of pie." Brindle soon followed, steady as ever, carrying a bundle of firewood on his back. "Morning," he rumbled. "Thought we'd need this tonight. The air is cooler already." Finally, Pip stumbled out, blinking sleepily. "I dreamed of honey cakes," he muttered, yawning so wide his ears wiggled. Together they shared a simple breakfast of bread with leftover jam, slices of cheese, and warm nettle tea. They ate on Hazel's doorstep, watching a breeze scatter the first yellow leaves across the path. "Autumn is here," Brindle said quietly. Hazel nodded. "We should start thinking of our winter stores." The picnic was wonderful, but it was just one day. Winter is many days long. Pip perked up. "Then let's plan another adventure. We can gather mushrooms, herbs, roots, and make pickles and jams. We'll be the best prepared animals in the whole forest." Finn licked a bit of jam from his paw. "So long as there's pie, I'll help." Hazel giggled. "Then it's decided. Tomorrow, we'll begin." The friends returned to the meadow later that afternoon to clean up what had been left behind. The sun peeked out from behind the clouds, warming their fur as they worked. Hazel collected scraps of cloth. Pip carried jars to return to their owners. Brindle stacked baskets neatly, and Finn hopped about, chasing after buzzing dragonflies when he should have been helping. Despite Finn's distractions, the work went quickly, and soon the meadow looked as if no great feast had ever taken place. Only soft grass and daisies swaying in the breeze. Hazel stood in the center, paws on her hips. There, good as new. They sat together under the oak tree to rest. Brindle pulled from his pack a small paper-wrapped parcel, thick slices of sausage, spiced with herbs. He passed them around, and the savory scent made everyone's stomach rumble. "Where did you get this?" Pip asked eagerly, nibbling a slice. "Traded with the Fox family," Brindle replied. "They're clever hunters, and I had plenty of bread left from yesterday." Hazel chewed thoughtfully. Food always seems to find its way to those who share. The friends lingered until the sky turned orange, speaking of the days ahead. They decided that the first thing to gather would be herbs, easy to dry and useful for flavoring stews. Pip promised to lead them to his secret patch near the stream, where thyme and sage grew wild. As they walked home, Hazel felt a quiet excitement stir in her chest. The meadow picnic had been a day of joy, but now came a new adventure, preparing for winter together. She looked at her friends, Brindle steady, Pip lively, Finn cheerful, and knew they would make the work feel like play. The next morning dawned clear and bright. Dew sparkled on the grass as Hazel, Pip, Brindle, and Finn set out with empty baskets. The forest was alive with autumn sounds, the rustle of leaves, the calls of jays, and the distant tap of a woodpecker. Pip led the way, tail twitching with excitement. This way, you'll see. It's the best patch in the whole forest." The path curved past tall willows and a bubbling stream, where the air smelled fresh and damp. Soon they reached a little clearing where green plants grew in thick clusters. The air here was rich with scent, sharp thyme, soft sage, and even a few sprigs of rosemary. Hazel knelt to sniff the thyme. "Oh, Pip, it smells wonderful." "Of course," Pip said proudly. "I've been coming here since I was little. No one else knows about it." Brindle set down his basket and began carefully clipping sprigs with a small knife. Hazel bundled sage leaves together with twine, while Pip fussed over arranging the herbs neatly. Finn, meanwhile, sniffed at everything, wrinkling his nose. "They all smell funny," he croaked. "They'll taste wonderful in stew," Brindle assured him. By midday, their baskets were full, and the clearing smelled even stronger from their work. They sat by the stream to share lunch. Brindle's bread, slices of sausage, and a jar of Pip's jam. Hazel spread cheese on her bread, topped it with sausage and a pinch of thyme, and declared it the best sandwich she had ever tasted. The others followed suit, even Finn, who admitted thyme wasn't so strange after all. They ate happily, paws dipping into the cool stream to wash off crumbs. As the sun drifted higher, they packed up their baskets, heavy with herbs, and started the walk home. Hazel's heart felt light. Each step brought them closer to being ready for the winter, and each day together made her more certain that no cold or snow could trouble them when they had one another. Back at Hazel's burrow, the real work began. The herbs had to be hung carefully so they would dry without spoiling. Brindle hammered small hooks into the beams above the hearth, and Pip climbed up on a stool, tying bundles of thyme, sage, and rosemary. The air soon filled with the gentle, comforting smell of herbs. Finn lay sprawled on the floor, watching the bundles sway. "It looks like a green curtain," he said dreamily. Hazel giggled. "A curtain that will flavor our stews all winter long." They worked late into the evening, stopping only to share a supper of roasted chestnuts and carrot soup. Pip sprinkled a few fresh herbs into the pot, and the whole room filled with their fragrance. The soup tasted earthy and warm, better than plain carrots could ever be. After dinner, they sat by the fire, tired but happy. Hazel looked around at her friends, their bellies full, their faces glowing in the firelight, and felt her chest swell with gratitude. "We're building more than just stores," she said softly. "We're building a winter full of comfort." Brindle gave a slow nod. Pip curled his tail tighter around himself, smiling. Finn yawned so wide it made everyone else yawn too. And with the steady tick of the little silver watch on the shelf, they drifted off to sleep, the scent of herbs lulling them like a lullaby. The next days were busy. They gathered mushrooms from the shady woods, carefully choosing only the good ones Pip showed them. They strung them on twine and hung them beside the herbs, until Hazel's burrow looked like a small shop full of hanging treasures. One morning, Brindle suggested they travel to the meadow market to trade. "We have plenty of jam, herbs, and bread," he said. "We could trade for cheese, butter, or dried fish." The idea lit Hazel's eyes. She had always loved the market, the bright stalls, the chatter of animals, the smells of spice and sweet cakes. So, with baskets full of their own goods, they set out together. The market was bustling when they arrived. A rabbit sold golden loaves of honey bread, a hedgehog offered jars of blackberry wine, and a group of mice scurried about with wheels of cheese nearly bigger than themselves. Hazel traded a bundle of sage for a small round of sharp cheddar. Pip swapped jam for a packet of cinnamon sticks. Brindle found smoked sausages and carefully packed them away. Finn, to no one's surprise, spent most of his time sampling free bites until his tongue was purple with berry juice. When they finally left, their baskets were heavier, but their hearts were light. Hazel couldn't wait to share everything in the cozy glow of her burrow. Winter was drawing nearer, but instead of fear, she felt only joy at the thought of evenings spent together, food, fire, and friendship. The forest was changing quickly now. Each day brought more golden leaves, and the air smelled sharp and crisp like apples left too long on the ground. Hazel and her friends had been busy, filling every corner of her burrow with jars, bundles, and baskets. Yet Hazel felt there was still one thing missing, a friend she had not seen in many weeks. Brindle was always steady, Pip lively, and Finn cheerful, but Hazel remembered an old friend who lived deeper in the woods, an older badger named Moss. Moss was known for his skill with roots, tubers, and wild herbs. He lived alone in a deep, tidy den carved into the hillside, and Hazel often wondered if he got lonely. "Let's visit Moss," Hazel suggested one chilly morning as she packed baskets for a short journey. Brindle's face lit up. "A good idea. I've not seen him since spring." Pip's ears twitched. "Doesn't he make that nettle and potato stew? The one that smells funny but tastes so good." "Yes," Hazel laughed. "And he always shares." So the four set off together. The path wound deeper into the woods, past a stretch of brambles heavy with late berries. They picked a few, staining their paws purple, before continuing. Soon they reached a mossy hill, where the entrance to Moss's den was half hidden by ivy. Hazel called gently, "Moss." "It's us, Hazel and friends." A shuffling sound came from within. Then, a large, sturdy badger with fur striped black and silver emerged. His eyes crinkled warmly when he saw them. "Well, bless my whiskers," Moss rumbled, his voice deep and calm. "Visitors. And not just any visitors, my favorite little forest folk." He ushered them inside, where the den smelled of earth, sage, and freshly baked bread. A kettle hissed softly on the stove. "You've come at the right time," Moss said with a grin. "I was just about to make stew, and I've got a new cheese from the market, firmer than usual, but full of flavor. Stay and share it with me." Hazel's heart glowed. Their circle of friends was growing, and winter would surely feel warmer with Moss by their side. Moss's den was cozy in a way that only a badger's home could be. The walls were lined with shelves carved from the earth itself, packed with jars of dried roots, wild onions, and bundles of herbs. A great wooden table stood in the middle, scarred with knife marks and stained from years of cooking. Hazel and Pip helped Moss chop potatoes and nettles, while Brindle fetched firewood for the stove. Finn, of course, leaned against the table, sneaking slices of Moss's new cheese when he thought no one was watching. "Careful, frog," Moss chuckled. "That's for after the stew." The stew bubbled slowly, filling the den with a rich, earthy smell. Moss grated a little of the cheese on top and tore thick slices of dark bread to dip in. When they all sat down, the first spoonful warmed Hazel all the way through. "This is wonderful," she said. "It's hearty food," Moss replied. "Keeps your paws warm in winter." As they ate, they shared stories of the meadow picnic, the herb gathering, and the market visit. Moss listened with quiet joy, occasionally nodding and rumbling a laugh. When the bowls were scraped clean, Pip licked his spoon and said, "Moss, you should come live closer to us. Then we could share food every day." Moss shook his head gently. "I like my quiet hill, little one. But I'll visit. And you can always find me here, if the snow isn't too deep." Hazel smiled. "Then we'll make sure you have what you need this winter, too. You're part of our circle now, whether you like it or not." Moss chuckled, his eyes soft. "I like it very much." The next morning, the friends left Moss's den with baskets full of gifts. Moss had insisted they take some of his dried roots, a jar of his pickled onions, and a loaf of his dense bread. Hazel promised they would return soon with jam, sausages, and cheese to trade. As they walked, the air felt even crisper, and the leaves along the path were almost all golden now. Pip bounced ahead, humming happily. "I like Moss," Pip announced. "He makes the best stew. And he has so many jars. Did you see them all? We should try pickling onions too." Hazel laughed. "One thing at a time, Pip. But maybe you're right." Back at Hazel's burrow, they set Moss's gifts neatly on the shelves. Finn immediately opened the jar of pickled onions, wrinkling his nose at the sharp smell, but taking a bite anyway. His eyes widened. Sour, but good. They spent the rest of the afternoon sorting their growing stores, hanging more herbs, and tucking roots into baskets lined with straw. Hazel felt her heart swell as she looked around. What had once been a simple burrow now looked like a winter pantry fit for a king. That evening, over roasted chestnuts and slices of Moss's bread, Hazel said softly, "With friends like ours, I think winter will be nothing to fear." Brindle nodded. Pip grinned, his cheeks full of bread. Finn licked his lips, still tasting onion. And Hazel thought of Moss, alone on his hill but not lonely anymore. And she knew the forest had given them something special, not just food, but friendship. The following week brought a surprise. Moss appeared at Hazel's burrow one bright morning, carrying a basket nearly as big as Pip. "Thought you could use a hand," he rumbled. "And I brought something." Inside the basket was a wheel of pale, creamy cheese wrapped in cloth, and a bundle of fresh herbs Hazel hadn't seen before. "It's lovage," Moss explained when he saw Hazel's curious look. "Good for soups, sharp but sweet. I grow it near my den." The friends gathered around as Moss cut into the cheese. It was soft and mild, spreading easily on bread. They all agreed it was the best they'd tasted yet. Over the next days, Moss taught them new ways to cook with their stores. He showed Hazel how to mix herbs into butter and keep it cool underground. He helped Pip and Brindle pickle turnips in big jars with vinegar and spices. Finn learned how to dry apples without burning them. Each day ended with a meal around Hazel's hearth. Sometimes sausage stew, sometimes bread with jam and cheese, sometimes roasted roots sprinkled with sage. The food always tasted better when shared, and laughter filled the burrow long after the plates were empty. Winter was closer than ever, but Hazel felt only peace. With Moss beside them, their circle was stronger. One crisp afternoon, Hazel suggested they hold another small feast, this time just for their circle of friends. "Not a meadow picnic," she said, "but a cozy gathering here before the cold sets in." They all agreed eagerly. Pip took charge of desserts, insisting on baking honey cakes. Brindle promised to bring smoked sausages. Finn volunteered to make cider, though no one was sure how much of it would survive his tasting. Moss offered to prepare a root and herb stew. Hazel planned to bake bread and set out cheeses. For 2 days, the burrow buzzed with activity. The smell of baking cakes mixed with the tang of cider and the rich scent of stewing roots. On the evening of the feast, the hearth glowed, candles flickered, and the shelves seemed to shine with all the gathered jars and bundles. They ate until their bellies were full and their laughter echoed out into the night. Moss, usually quiet, even told an old tale of his youth, about chasing a clever rabbit through the snow and ending up with nothing but a nose full of frost. Pip nearly fell over laughing. As they sat back, warm and drowsy, Hazel looked at her friends, the rabbit, the mouse, the frog, the badger, and thought, this is what winter is for. To gather close, to share, to be glad. The FRST snow came earlier than anyone expected. One morning, Hazel pushed open her burrow door and gasped. The world outside had turned white overnight. Every branch, every leaf, every stone was dusted with soft, glittering snow. The air smelled clean and sharp, and the forest lay silent, as if holding its breath. Pip rushed out with a squeal, leaving tiny tracks as he danced in the snow. "Look at it. It's like powdered sugar," he cried, scooping up pawfuls and tossing them into the air. Finn hopped carefully, shivering but smiling. Cold on the toes, but pretty. Brindle only nodded, though Hazel saw his whiskers twitch with quiet pleasure. The snow meant their gathering days were over, but their cupboards were full, and Hazel's heart was steady. "Let's invite Moss," she said. "We can't let him sit alone on his hill when the snow is so thick." So they trudged together through the frosted forest, their paws crunching on the snow. When they reached Moss's den, they found smoke rising cheerfully from his chimney. Moss was glad to see them, his dark fur sprinkled with flakes. "I hoped you'd come," he said, ushering them in. His den smelled of roasting chestnuts, and a kettle steamed on the stove. The friends sat close around the fire, their bellies warm with stew and bread, while outside the snow kept falling. Hazel thought there was nothing cozier in the world. Snow made the forest quieter, but it also made it playful. Soon the animals found new games, sliding down icy slopes, rolling snowballs, and building little forts near the meadow. Pip, of course, proved the champion of snowball throwing. Finn tried to join in, but his throws were weak, and he mostly ended up stuck in drifts, laughing until Brindle pulled him out. One afternoon, Hazel surprised them with an idea. "Let's make a feast out in the snow," she said. "We'll build a fire in the meadow and roast food together under the open sky." The thought thrilled them. They bundled bread, sausages, chestnuts, and jars of jam into baskets and carried them out. Moss, with his strong paws, cleared a space and built a tidy fire, the flames crackling bright against the white. As the sausages sizzled and the chestnuts popped, the friends huddled in cloaks and scarves. The meadow looked magical, snowflakes drifting, trees glittering, and smoke curling up into the pale winter sky. "Food always tastes better outside," Moss said, passing Brindle a steaming sausage. Hazel licked jam from her whiskers, smiling. "Food always tastes better with friends." The days grew colder, and snow piled high, but the animals were never lonely. Their little circle visited each other often, carrying baskets through the frosted forest paths. Hazel's burrow became a favorite spot, warm and lively, with shelves that seemed to glow with jars and loaves. One evening, Pip suggested, "We should have a winter feast. Bigger than a picnic, bigger than our last gathering. Something to carry us through until spring." Everyone agreed at once. Plans began. Hazel would bake soft loaves and prepare her cheeses. Brindle promised smoked meats. Finn swore to make cider without drinking it all this time, and Moss offered to prepare a grand stew with roots, beans, and herbs. Clover the Hedgehog was invited too, bringing honey cakes dusted with sugar like fresh snow. For days, the burrow was filled with the sounds and smells of cooking. The winter feast was ready just as the longest night of the year arrived. That night, candles glowed, the fire roared, and the table overflowed. They ate until they were full, then told stories, sang songs, and laughed until their sides ached. Outside, the winter night lay deep and dark. Inside, the forest animals knew they had made a light all their own. After the winter feast, life slowed. The snow kept falling, and days were quiet, filled with small comforts. Hazel spent mornings mending blankets. Pip shelled nuts by the fire, his tail curled around him. Finn took to brewing little pots of herb tea. Brindle carved wooden spoons with patient paws. Moss, when he visited, always brought a new jar or loaf to share. One afternoon, Hazel set out a tray of bread with butter mixed with Moss's herbs, a wedge of cheese, and a pot of berry jam. They ate slowly, talking softly. The food, though simple, seemed like a treasure on such a cold day. "Do you ever worry," Finn asked suddenly, "that the food might run out before spring?" Hazel looked around at their shelves, still heavy with jars and baskets. "No," she said firmly. "We prepared well, and even if it did, we'd share what we had. Together, we'll always be enough." The others nodded. Brindle patted Finn's back. Pip passed him the last slice of bread, already spread thick with jam. And Finn smiled, comforted, his worries melting like snow in sunlight. The weeks passed, and the snow slowly began to soften. Icicles dripped, and small shoots of green peeked through the frost. The forest seemed to sigh in relief, waking from its long sleep. Hazel stepped outside one morning to hear birds singing again, clear, bright notes that carried the promise of spring. She felt her chest fill with joy. That afternoon, the friends gathered in the meadow once more. The ground was still damp with melting snow, but small flowers pushed bravely through. They laid a blanket and unpacked their last jars of jam, their last slices of cheese, their last smoked sausages from Brindle's store. "It feels like saying goodbye to winter," Hazel said softly, spreading jam on bread. "But also hello to spring," Pip added, tossing a piece of bread to a passing bird. They ate happily, watching the sun sink low. The air was still cool, but it carried the scent of earth and growth. Soon the forest would be green again, and their gathering days would return. The snow melted slowly, and the forest woke with small signs of life. Hazel often stood at the edge of the meadow, watching water drip from the branches, soaking into the ground. Each drop seemed to carry a promise. Birds began to return, their songs bright and hopeful, while green shoots poked bravely through the damp earth. One morning, Moss appeared at Hazel's burrow with a heavy basket. "I thought it's time we shared the last of our winter stores," he said. Inside were 2 loaves of dark bread, the end of his dried beans, and a round of cheese that smelled faintly of herbs. Hazel smiled. "Then we should do it properly. A meal to thank winter for keeping us safe, and to welcome spring for returning." So they gathered at Hazel's burrow. Brindle brought smoked sausages from his deepest cupboard. Pip found a jar of jam hidden behind the herbs, and Finn poured the very last of his cider into wooden cups. Together, they laid everything out on the table. Bread, cheese, sausage, jam, and cider. Simple food, but enough to make the burrow glow with warmth. They ate slowly, savoring each bite. Pip sighed happily as he spread jam thickly on bread. "It tastes even better now that it's nearly gone." "That's the magic of winter food," Moss said with a chuckle. "It carries us through the cold, but it also makes spring feel brighter when it ends." Hazel nodded, her heart full. She thought of the months behind them: snowstorms, laughter, meals shared, and shelves carefully filled. She thought of how friendship had carried them through. As the fire crackled and her friends chatted around her, Hazel felt a deep peace. But she also knew this was not the end. The forest would soon burst into green, and with it would come new adventures. The next days grew brighter. Sunlight spilled longer across the meadow, and small flowers appeared, snowdrops first, then crocuses, their colors shining against the last bits of frost. Hazel's paws tingled with excitement each time she stepped outside. "Spring is here," she whispered one morning, watching bees buzz sleepily around the first blossoms. Her friends felt it too. Brindle began clearing his shed, preparing to smoke fresh meats once the hunts began again. Pip collected twigs and bark for nesting, already dreaming of new tree houses. Finn hummed cheerfully by the pond, waiting for the insects to return. And Moss, though slower in his movements, walked the forest paths with a kind of quiet pride, pointing out shoots of wild garlic and tender herbs. One afternoon, Hazel suggested they gather herbs together. Moss led the way, showing them where to look. "This is wild garlic," he said, holding up green shoots with a sharp smell. "Good in soups. And this, sorrel. Sour, but brightens up a salad." They filled baskets with green treasures. Back at the burrow, Hazel mixed soft cheese with garlic leaves, spreading it on warm bread. Pip sprinkled sorrel into a salad with apples and nuts. Finn poured fresh water flavored with mint. It felt like the first true meal of spring. As they ate, the sunlight streamed through the burrow windows, making everything glow. Hazel thought, food tastes different in every season. Winter is heavy and warm. Spring is light and fresh. And she felt lucky to taste them all with her friends. With spring came busier days. The meadow buzzed with life again, and the animals planned a new picnic, smaller than the great feast of summer, but still special. Hazel wanted to celebrate the return of color to the forest. Each friend prepared something simple but bright. Hazel baked small buns filled with herbs. Brindle roasted sausages over an open fire. Pip gathered berries from the earliest bushes, carrying them proudly in a basket lined with leaves. Finn made a drink from dandelions, sweetened with a little honey. Moss, steady and thoughtful, brought a pot of nettle and potato stew, this time flavored with the new wild garlic. They laid their blanket in the meadow, surrounded by tall grass already alive with buzzing insects. The sky stretched wide and blue, dotted with clouds drifting lazily. As they ate, they told stories of winter. Pip boasting about his snow forts, Finn exaggerating about his snowball victories, Brindle shaking his head with a patient smile. Moss listened, occasionally rumbling a laugh, his eyes crinkling with warmth. Hazel leaned back, chewing on a bun, and thought, every season has its own flavor, and every picnic has its own joy. Not long after, Hazel had an idea. "We've shared so many meals in the meadow and my burrow. But what about Moss's Hill?" He always hosts us in his den. What if we held a gathering outside his home, under the spring sky? Moss looked startled, then touched. No one's ever asked before, he said softly. So they planned it. Pip decorated the hillside with flowers, tucking daisies and violets into little bundles. Finn carried jugs of water flavored with lemon balm. Brindle brought bread, still warm from his oven. Hazel prepared cheeses rolled in herbs. Moss himself roasted roots in his fire pit, the smell drifting sweet and rich across the hillside. That evening, as the sun set golden behind the trees, they sat together on Moss's hill. The forest stretched wide below them, glowing in the fading light. They ate slowly, talking and laughing, watching fireflies appear in the dusk. Moss sat quietly for a while, his big paws folded on his lap. At last, he said, "This is the happiest I've been in a long time." "Thank you." Hazel squeezed his paw gently. "You're part of us now, Moss. Always." And the others nodded, their hearts as warm as the fire crackling nearby. The days grew warmer, and with them came a flurry of activity in the woods. Bees hummed over blossoms, butterflies floated lazily through the air, and the stream near Hazel's burrow sang more brightly than ever. The animals spent more time outside now, enjoying the soft grass and golden light. One bright morning, Pip scampered into Hazel's burrow, paws sticky with berry juice. "Hazel, you won't believe it. The berry bushes near the pond are bursting. The juiciest berries you've ever tasted." Hazel laughed at his stained paws and fetched a cloth. "Slow down, Pip. You'll get yourself in a tangle. But you're right. We should gather them before the birds do." They set off together, and soon Finn joined them, hopping along the path. Brindle followed at a slower pace, carrying baskets, while Moss brought along a walking stick he had carved from a fallen branch. The bushes were indeed heavy with berries, dark, glossy, and sweet-smelling. The friends worked together, filling baskets until their paws and whiskers were stained purple. Pip ate more than he gathered, his cheeks bulging with berries, while Finn carefully selected the plumpest ones. Moss hummed a tune as he worked, and Brindle kept steady count, making sure they didn't overfill the baskets. Back at Hazel's burrow, they turned the harvest into jars of jam, their laughter filling the room as they stirred the bubbling pot. The smell was sweet and comforting, clinging to the walls. Hazel spread a little on fresh bread, and the taste was like sunshine itself. "This," she said, "is what spring tastes like." With their shelves now lined with shining jars of berry jam, Hazel had another idea. "Why don't we invite the meadow neighbors to share in our food? Everyone is busy in spring, and maybe they'd like a moment to rest." The others agreed, and plans for a meadow gathering began. Pip ran about collecting wildflowers for decorations, while Finn promised to provide fresh pondweed salad for the frogs and new tadpoles. Brindle baked rolls, filling them with herbs, while Moss prepared a stew full of roots, carrots, and wild garlic. Hazel, as always, organized everything, carefully noting what they had and what they needed. The day of the gathering arrived warm and bright. Animals from across the woods came, squirrels with their young, hedgehogs rolling shyly into the grass, even a family of ducks waddling up from the pond. They spread blankets on the meadow, the air full of chatter and laughter. Food was laid out in abundance: sausages, cheese rounds, honeycombs brought by bees, rolls with jam, and Moss's stew simmering gently over the fire. Everyone took what they liked, and no one went hungry. Hazel looked around at the meadow alive with joy and thought, "Food is more than eating. It is sharing, giving, and bringing others together." When the sun set, painting the sky orange and pink, the meadow glowed with the warmth of full bellies and full hearts. As the season deepened, Moss invited the friends to his den again. He had been busy experimenting with flavors, combining herbs he'd gathered. "I may not be fast anymore," he said with a grin, "but I know how to season a pot." He showed them bundles of thyme, rosemary, and marjoram, carefully dried and tied with twine. "These make even plain food rich," Moss explained. That evening, they cooked together. Brindle roasted sausages, sprinkling thyme on top. Hazel stirred a pot of lentils with rosemary. Pip arranged slices of cheese with marjoram, and Finn tried his paw at making a herb tea. The air grew thick with delicious smells, and when they finally sat down to eat, each dish tasted new and bright. Pip licked his lips happily. I never thought a leaf could change so much. Moss chuckled. Herbs are small, but they make big magic. Hazel looked at the old badger with respect. He had brought not only new flavors, but also new ways of thinking, teaching them to see the forest's gifts in every leaf, every sprig. Later, as they sat in the fading light, Hazel thought, our circle has grown, not just in number, but in wisdom. Moss has given us more than food. He's given us deeper roots in the forest. One morning, Finn hopped excitedly to Hazel's burrow. The pond is blooming, he cried. The lilies are open, and the water's clearer than ever. You must come see. So they all went, carrying baskets of food to turn the visit into a picnic. When they arrived, the sight was breathtaking. The pond shimmered under the sun, covered in green lily pads and yellow blossoms. Dragonflies darted over the surface, their wings flashing like jewels. Finn showed them the reeds where he liked to rest, and Pip clambered onto a large lily pad, pretending to be a captain steering a boat. Brindle laughed so hard he nearly dropped the loaf of bread he carried. They spread out their food by the water's edge. Rolls with jam, slices of cheese wrapped in leaves, sausages cooked over a small fire, and cool water flavored with mint. The friends ate slowly, enjoying the gentle sounds of the pond, frogs croaking, insects buzzing, water rippling. As the sun dipped lower, Hazel lay back on the grass, her paws folded over her chest. Every place tastes different, she murmured. Food in the meadow is bright. Food in Moss's den is rich. Food by the pond is calm. Finn beamed. Then the pond will always welcome you. And Hazel felt grateful that their world had so many flavors, each tied to a friend and a place in the forest. Late spring brought longer days and gentle rains. The forest seemed greener than ever, bursting with new growth. Hazel decided it was time for one last celebration before summer arrived. We'll hold a feast in the clearing, she said. A thank you to spring for its gifts. Everyone prepared something special. Brindle baked a great round loaf, crusty and golden. Pip gathered the last of the early berries and stirred them into a tart. Finn caught a basket of pondweed and herbs for salad. Moss cooked a stew richer than ever, flavored with thyme and bay leaves. Hazel herself churned butter from cream she had traded with the squirrels and rolled it with wild garlic. They carried everything to the clearing, where the trees opened up to the sky. A long blanket was laid, and the feast began. The animals laughed, shared stories, and ate until they were full. As the stars came out, Hazel looked at her friends and felt her heart swell. They had weathered winter, welcomed spring, and now stood ready for summer. Their shelves would fill again, their days would lengthen, and their bond would grow stronger. She raised her cup of mint water. To us. To every season, every meal, and every adventure. Together, the others raised their cups too, voices joining in one promise. The forest, quiet and vast, seemed to nod in agreement. The end. Thank you for joining Hazel, Moss, Brindle, Pip, and Finn on their adventure. If you enjoyed this story, check out our channel for more magical forest tales and cozy adventures waiting just for you. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and come back soon for the next story.